What's up you guys, Mike Lazarecki here, and welcome back to another video. This week we have a DaVinci Resolve tutorial, and I'm going to give you 5 tips to get you started in the edit page on DaVinci Resolve. And if you hang around to the end of the video, I'm going to give you 2, not 1, but 2 bonus tips that will also be helpful in getting started with DaVinci Resolve. Now, I am on DaVinci Resolve Studio 17. I think it's public beta release number 8 right now. So yeah, that's the specific version of the software I'm using. Other than that, let's jump over into the computer and, well, let's see what the first of the 5 tips are, right? Let's go. All right, we are now in computer view. Tip number 1 is actually going to be 3 specific keyboard shortcuts that I use the most often within DaVinci Resolve Studio. Now, you can customize your keyboard shortcuts, so these can be changed to match whether you're coming from Premiere or if maybe you're coming from Final Cut. Either way, you can alter these. Right now, I'm just going to show you what the default keyboard shortcuts are. So like with anything else, you hit spacebar to actually play on the timeline, and then you can actually see your timeline playing through. So the first of the 3 keyboard shortcuts that I want to show you is actually how to get all the way back to the beginning of the timeline in one quick motion. It's not as simple as just hitting this button up here like it would be in Premiere. So if I stop my playhead, rather than clicking this, because if I just click this guy, it's just going to take me back to the most recent edit point. And let's just say I'm at this point in my edit and I want to go back to the beginning and just see how everything flows together. Instead of having to drag the timeline back, you could do that. But instead, you can just hit Shift-I and it takes you all the way back to the beginning, and then all you got to do is hit your spacebar and you're good to go. The other 2 keyboard shortcuts that I'm going to show you are really simple, and those 2 keyboard shortcuts are the keyboard shortcuts to get to my 2 most frequently used tools or modes, and that would be the selection mode or the blade edit mode, okay? The nice thing is with most of the tools in DaVinci Resolve, if you hover over them long enough, they will give you a hint as to what the keyboard shortcut is. For example, if you hover over the selection mode icon, it tells you that the keyboard shortcut is the letter A, which I'm already on that one right now. So if I want to go to the blade edit mode keyboard shortcut, that is the letter B. So yeah, Shift-I, A, and B, those are the 3 keyboard shortcuts that I use the most often. Let's move on to tip number 2. Sync up your audio automatically with your video with the function called auto align clips. So if we go in here and we bring in our footage and we bring in the audio that goes with it, okay, and to make this super simple, we can kind of zoom in and you can see just based on the waveform that we have an offset, and you could go through and kind of drag this around to make sure that it fit, and sometimes that works. But the quickest and most accurate way to synchronize these 2 pieces of media is to actually go through, select these 2 clips, come up to Clip, and select Auto Align Clips based on waveform. You click that, it processes it, and within seconds, you're aligned perfectly. And now you can go ahead and just mute the in-camera audio, and you are running off of your 2-system sound audio, and life is good. Tip number 3, fine-tune your timeline using snapping or not. So a lot of times when you're trying to make really fine adjustments to your timeline, you might want to actually get your playhead to exactly where you want something to happen and be able to make sure that you make that edit exactly where that timeline playhead actually is sitting. Now, that's all well and good, but sometimes if you're not using snapping, it can be just a little bit off on one side or the other, and if it has anything to do with syncing audio and video, you could totally screw things up by not using snapping. Now, in DaVinci Resolve, the icon for snapping is the little magnet, which is seen right up here. And an even quicker way to toggle it on and off is just by hitting the letter N for Nancy. You know, N. Nancy. Now, I know when you're using snapping on the timeline, sometimes you don't want to use snapping because you have to make an even finer adjustment than you would if you were like really near the playhead or near another clip, and sometimes the snapping just bounces it a little bit too far. So again, you just hit that N button, it turns off snapping, and if you need to turn it back on right after that edit, Hit N again, and it turns it right back on. Nancy. So tip number 4, give that project of yours a cinematic aspect ratio by using output blanking. Okay, so let's say we've got this kind of cool B-roll sequence and it looks really neat, but we want to just add that one little extra piece of cinematic goodness. So instead of trying to accomplish that by cropping the image or, making it more cinematic with grading, which I suppose you could try to do, you can use something called output blanking to give yourself more of a CinemaScope look to the image. And what that basically does is bakes in cutting off the top and bottom, like letterboxing the image, and it allows you to more natively export that CinemaScope appearance to your image. Let me show you. So let's say this is the sequence that you want to make look super cinematic. All you have to do is come up here to Timeline, go down to Output Blanking, and select your desired aspect ratio. So for me personally, I typically like the look of 2.35 or 2.0 the best. I don't know what it is about those two, but I like the way they look the best. So we'll go with 2.35 on this one so you can see what that looks like. And look at that. Basically what I just did was totally cut off the top and bottom, and you have a more cinematic looking aspect ratio. So if you've gotten to a point where you're pretty happy with your edit and you want a little bit closer look at how it all looks together, you can get a closer look at your project by utilizing the full screen preview with the click of one button on your keyboard. So in order to get a full screen preview, all you got to do is hover over the viewport and hit the letter P on your keyboard, and you are now in a full screen preview mode. And you are able to watch back your clip in all of its full screen glory. Now once you're done, you can just hit the P button again, or you can click this little icon down here in the lower right to bring yourself back into the standard edit. And the first of your 2 bonus tips, you can copy and paste attributes like, I don't know, a color grade, for example, from one clip to another very simply. So let's just say this clip on your timeline is color graded and ready to go, but the following clip is not quite there yet. You haven't done the color grade and you want to just make sure they're exactly the same. So you just want to copy something from this clip into the other clip. It's pretty simple to do. So within that, you can either right click and select copy, or you can select the clip, hit Control C, because I like keyboard shortcuts, they're a little bit faster. And then we can go to our next clip, select that guy, and you can either right click and select paste attributes, or you can hit Alt V. I'm going to do the keyboard shortcut, and that'll bring up this dialog box, which is nice because it gives you a lot more finite control over which pieces of the previous clip that you copied it from you actually want to apply to this clip. Now typically I'll usually just either select all video attributes, or I'll go through here and select the specific video attribute that I want to copy. So since I'm just looking to copy the color grade over, instead of selecting all the video attributes, I can just select color correction and hit apply. And there you see I brought the color grade over. And your second bonus tip and final tip of the day is to make use of the inspector panel. Now the inspector panel can be initiated up here in the upper right. You click on this, and a lot of times it's already pre-opened, but if it's not, that's how you would actually open it up. And one of the nice things, if we go back into our other timeline where we did the CinemaScope aspect ratio, just as an example, this gives you all kinds of control, including stabilization, lens correction, retime scaling, all of that. We're going to actually use these controls to reposition the framing within our output blanking, among a whole bunch of other things. The inspector panel is really indispensable. If you're going to use DaVinci Resolve, you will end up using the inspector panel for literally everything. All of your settings for all your effects are in there, and yeah. So get used to using the inspector panel and go and try out all these tips and let me know how you guys like them. Okay, good. Did we get everything? I think we did. All right, so there you go. There is 5, 6, 7 quick tips to get you started in the DaVinci Resolve 17 edit panel. Either way, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, do me a favor and hit that thumbs up. Consider subscribing if you have not in the past, and I will see you guys next time.